It's a bit surprising that we've never done Daily Kos, but they made sure of it this week with paranoid delusions about 3D printed guns. So, of course, we start off with a school shooting from 2019 to make sure your amygdala and hippocampus are stimulated so that your rational mind is cut off. Who would have expected anything else? The fear-mongering is about ghost guns, which can't be traced because they don't have a magic number stamped on the lower. They say, quote, "In cities like Los Angeles and Baltimore, ghost guns recovered at crime scenes have increased by over 400% in a 3-year time span and are still growing." And by now, all the regular listeners should know what to ask. Compared to what? I mean, if it's one crime and then 4 crimes 3 years later, that's a 400% increase. And notice they're just recovered at crime scenes, not saying they were actually used. Also, note the non-committal cities like Los Angeles and Baltimore. Which cities like LA and Baltimore? Just those two? What others are included? And I can't help notice that those are 2 cities with more than their share of gun control laws, increasing pretty much every year for at least a decade, and of course run by Democrats. Quote, "Worst of all, right-wing media opposition has ensured there will be no federal legislation to handle this threat." At least if by right-wing opposition you mean basic constitutional protections. Ready to laugh out loud? Quote, "Regulation on these untraceable weapons amounts to an attack on the firearms industry." Because being able to print something without purchasing it from a firearm company somehow benefits the firearms industry. I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, to sensible people, you'd think the attack on the industry would be able to get one without purchasing it from them. It's funny how they keep giving examples of people not using 3D printed guns. They try to get around it by saying they buy AR-15 kits, but that just means they get them unassembled. That doesn't mean they're not getting lowers from FFLs. Meanwhile, it's still possible to ballistically match a bullet to a barrel. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, all you've ever needed to make your own firearm, even fully automatic assault rifles, is about $5,000 in machinist tools. Yet Daily Kos hopes you don't know that when they spew outright lies. Quote, "Not long ago, only manufacturers like Remington, Glock, or Sig Sauer could manufacture firearms because the process required large, expensive machines and expert gunsmiths who knew something about weapons engineering. For that matter, prisoners keep making guns out of stuff they're able to acquire." Another outright lie, quote, "In 2013, an open-source firm called Defense Distributed created the Liberator, a handgun completely made from plastic, save for one tiny nail used as the firing pin that can be purchased at any hardware store." Did you forget the barrel, morons? The barrel needs to be made of metal. As usual, Democrats are saints and Republicans evil. Quote, "The Obama administration's State Department stopped a libertarian activist, Cody Wilson, from publishing blueprints of 3D printed weapons on the internet, and multiple courts ruled in favor of this policy. However, once Trump came into office, that decision was reversed." What actually happened was that sensible heads prevailed and decided that the First Amendment was still a thing after all. They even acknowledged that it's always been legal for people to make firearms for their own personal use. Bonus Bogons for using the word epidemic. They hate the First Amendment, they hate the Second, they hate the Fourth and Fifth, they hate the Ninth. What part of the Constitution do they like anyway?